Hey everybody, do you ever consider what would happen if the entire global financial system just suddenly shut down? I think we've been on the brink of that before from a perspective of 2008. There was lack of liquidity. People, were concerned about the future value of their investments and their money. But I don't think we at a global scale have ever seen a situation where you can't even access your bank account. You can't transfer money. You can't pull money out. This is something that could really only happen under the premise of a cyber attack. Well, the IMF and the World Bank recently conducted an experiment in early December of what would happen if a cyber attack took down the global financial system. This is something that we all actually have to be prepared for. Yes, while central banks would have to scramble, make sure liquidity was still available, counterparty risk was minimized, things like that, we as individuals would be like, where's our money? It's still in a bank account. So in this video, I want to show you what we learned in the article of how the fallout would kind of precipitate throughout some of the scenarios of a central bank or other countries, but how we as individuals could handle it. Where do you put your money? What do you do? So go ahead, smash that like button, and let's get this video out to basically anybody who has a bank account or a vested interest in their financial future. Because yes, we try to invest in stocks and crypto and real estate and all these things to grow our wealth. But what about preserving just that home base where you have your day-to-day money or maybe your long-term savings? This is super important to know. How do we protect that from a scenario where the money could suddenly get turned off? All right, so smash that like button and let's get started. All right, let's take a look at this article. So exclusive, IMF and 10 countries simulate a cyber attack on global financial system. So this was held in Jerusalem on December 9th. Israel on Thursday led a 10-country simulation of a major cyber attack on the global financial system in an attempt to increase cooperation that could help to minimize any potential damage to financial markets and banks. The simulated war game, as Israel's finance ministry called it, and planned over the last year, evolved over 10 days, with sensitive data emerging on the dark web. The simulation also used fake news reports that, in the scenario, caused chaos in global markets and a run on banks. A run on banks is when people rush to the bank to pull out all their money en masse. And that's a problem because most banks, contingent on their reserve requirement, don't have all the actual dollars that are supposed to be deposited there because it's lent out. So when they have more money asked to be withdrawn than exists, that's when you get hashtag problems. Let's continue. The simulation, likely caused by what officials called sophisticated players, featured several types of attacks that impacted global foreign exchange and bond markets, liquidity, integrity of data, and transactions between importers and exporters. These events are creating havoc in the financial market, said a narrator of a film shown to the participants as part of the simulation and seen by Reuters. Israeli government officials said that such threats are possible in the wake of many high-profile cyber attacks on large companies, and that the only way to contain any damage is through global cooperation, since current cybersecurity is not always strong enough. Attackers are 10 steps ahead of the defender. Misha Weiss, financial cyber manager at Israel's finance ministry, told Reuters. Participants in the initiative, called Collective Strength, include Treasury officials from Israel, the US, UK, UAE, Austria, Switzerland, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, and Thailand, as well as representatives from the IMF, International Monetary Fund, World Bank, and Bank of International Settlements. The narrator of the film in the simulation said governments were under pressure to clarify the impact of the attack, which is paralyzing the global financial system. The banks are appealing for emergency liquidity assistance in a multitude of currencies to put a halt to the chaos as counterparties withdraw their funds and limit access to liquidity, leaving the banks in disarray and ruin, the narrator said. The participants discussed multilateral policies to respond to the crisis, including a coordinated bank holiday, debt repayment grace periods, swap repo agreements, and coordinated delinking from major currencies. Rahav Shalom Ravivo, head of Israel's financial cyber engagement, said, international collaboration between finance ministries and international organizations is key for the resilience of the financial ecosystem. And the simulation was originally scheduled for Dubai, but was moved to Jerusalem. So, kind of a scary scenario, but let's not focus on the fear, let's focus on the facts. You have the ability to do something in an event like this But the key thing is before, not during. You need to prepare now. Now, one of the things I advocate to everybody is you need to have diversification in your financial institutions. Don't have just one bank account. Have your money spread out amongst multiple types of banks, bigger, smaller banks, ones that will be more of an international exposure perhaps because maybe you're traveling and so you want to be able to have access to your money wherever you are. And then, of course, we got to talk about, should you have some physical gold? Should you have crypto? Yes and yes. All these things are a good strategy to at least start to have that diversification should one whole system get turned off. The internet, could it get turned off all at once? I think a lot of people might actually say no because it's a mesh of networks. But again, you never know. So when it comes to financial institutions, they are highly coupled. When you think about if you want to send a wire or something like that, they all have to talk to each other. And if one part goes down, it definitely affects the others. So either way, we need to have diversification in our financial institutions, but also our forms of money. And that's where the cash, the crypto, the gold, things like that come into play. And things were to get really bad if an extended financial institution shutdown happened, day after day, people couldn't get paid, things like that. A lot of economies would be teetering on the brink. Some already are. If we look at places where inflation's run out of control, like Venezuela, right now Turkey is fighting inflation with their lira crashing, and if they don't get to control that situation, within themselves in this moment, they're going to have their own problems, and that's without the global financial system suddenly turning off. So they're going to have to face way more problems if this was to happen in this scenario, because I think this could really push a country like Turkey, like Venezuela, completely into uncontrolled chaos if the money was inaccessible. So we have to have those type of preparations, be ready to barter, things like that, if this was to happen, if you live in a country that's already teetering on the edge. Now, this is kind of a crazy scenario, but again, the IMF, the World Bank, when they start wargaming these things out, again, it's kind of prophetic. We know the simulation that was run in late 2019, and now look at the last 2 years. So that's why I would take something like this seriously and make sure you have the diversification amongst the financial institutions to keep yourself safe and prepared. So what do you guys think? Drop a comment, what your thoughts are on this article, how you're preparing for something like this. Go ahead, smash that like button, and consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time.